Now, as we continue in worship, we're going to continue in a series that we've been doing the last few weeks called Show Me a Sign. And the idea of this is in the Gospel of John that there are 7 signs, 7 wonders, 7 miracles that point to who Jesus is. And John Riley, our pastor, has already done 2. And he started in the first week by looking at the end of the Gospel at John to kind of give us an idea of what it is that we're doing. It says this in John 20. Jesus performed many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not recorded in this book. But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. And the idea of this series and the idea of these stories is that they are signs that point to who Jesus is and how we're supposed to respond. That literally the goal is to believe that Jesus is the Son of God and that by believing you may have life. Now, as we continue in this and as we continue in this series of these 7 signs, we're going to look at our third sign. But first, a reminder of where we've been. The first week, we looked at Jesus turning water into wine, a pretty common or pretty well-known story. But it reminds us that Jesus is active and cares about the ordinary details of your life. Last week, John led us through a story about a young man who was sick, who Jesus healed. Right? And it reminds us that Jesus is drawn to you in your desperation so that you can take him at his word. Today we continue by looking at this third sign, this third miracle, and we ask again, what is it that Jesus has for us today in the midst of it? We start in John chapter 5, verse 1, and it says, sometime later, Jesus went up to Jerusalem for one of the Jewish festivals. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool which in Aramaic is called Bethesda and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Now we actually have a picture of what that looks like here. And it's interesting, these pools, they exist still in some Jewish communities. They're called a mikvah. And the idea is that they're a part of kind of a ritual cleanliness or a religious cleanliness kind of. And they would be used at times if they were converting to Judaism. You might go into one of these baths as kind of, almost like our baptism, maybe as part of like cleanliness for preparation, sometimes before a wedding, for various reasons. Now, this one is unique because of the people that are at this pool that Jesus is going to visit. And it says in verse 3 that around the pool, here a great number of disabled people used to lie, the blind, the lame, the paralyzed. And here's the idea. You can go to the next slide. There it is. Here's the idea is that these people are showing up and they have an expectation of this pool. Now, just so that we really have kind of a clear image, the show, The Chosen, which some of you might have seen, which is a live action kind of show depicting these very events, right? Trying to give us visuals of what Jesus' life looked like or what it might have been. They depict it like this. We have the pool and then we have people all around. And what they're doing is they're waiting for something to happen, hoping that they'll be healed. And the idea was that if on the pool, on the surface of the pool, there was a disturbance where there was little ripples, then what they believed is that the first person to touch the pool after that moment would be healed. They wait every day watching this pool and thinking, if they can just get into the water first, they could be made well. That all of these people who are desperate, they have nowhere else to turn. You think of the medical system back then, and all I have left is to sit by this pool and hope that a miracle will happen. Every day they watch this pool waiting. Now, as we go through this, I want to try and put ourselves into the mindset of one of these people waiting in the pool, waiting by the pool. And to do that, I want to start by asking the question, what do you need to be made well? For them, there is an obvious infirmity, disease, sickness, whatever it is, that they're waiting and saying, I need to wait for this pool and then I will be well. If this could just heal me of this thing, I could continue with my life. Now, for you, it might be something different. It might be something small or big, I don't know. But as a culture, we tend to think this way, right? We think of life hacks. We think of kind of mastering something. Maybe for you, it's just, I just need to get better sleep, maybe longer sleep. Maybe you've got one of those cool, the rings that kind of, they monitor your sleep and you're, oh, how's my rhythm, right? I've got this picture of a cat here, that's sleep, great. Yeah. Maybe for you, it's, hey, I need to eat better, right? I want to eat kind of healthier food. I want to live longer. And if I could just cut out some of the carbs, cut out some of the sugar, then I'll feel better about life. Maybe there's somebody that you're following, an influencer, a guru, someone that you're saying, I want to be like that person, and I'm going to take their advice. I'm going to buy the products that they tell me to buy. I'm going to wake up and do these activities every morning, this beauty care routine. This will be the thing that will make me happy. For some of us, it's, can I just get away for a few days? Can I just be somewhere else, away from the pressure, away from the stress, away from my coworkers, and I can just relax? Some of us, we go all day and we're thinking, if I can just get to the end of the day when I can kind of numb myself, I can have a drink, I can relax, whatever you tell yourself. We had a guy at last service who was up front in the middle who's kind of like, like, that's me. And I was like, you should have come 2 weeks ago. Anyways, it was the water to wine thing. Okay. Maybe for you, it's a work thing, right? You're thinking, man, if I just grind now, then I'll get to the position that I'll really feel good. Or I'll finally get enough money in the bank, I'll feel secure. Or if I just get to retirement age, then I'll be okay. I'll work hard now because then I'll be able to relax. Maybe it's a relationship for you. Maybe if I could just meet the right person, if I could just get married, if I could just start dating, if we could just have a child, then I will feel complete. Then I'll be made whole. And here is my point, is that as we think about these people waiting by this pool, I want us to understand that many of us are waiting by a pool and we don't realize it. We are telling ourselves, if only, then I will be better. Then I will be happy. Then I can live. Here's the thing. Our limitations, they have weight because we are reminded of the things that we can't do. Until I have this relationship, man, I can't do these fun things, or I can't be a part of this, or I can't think this way. Until I have this money or this thing, I can't live the way I want to live. And it's important to remind us, right? Our limitations, they don't need to define us, and that's a big part of what we're talking about today. There are people in this room right now who have overcome diagnoses, who have overcome hardships, who have been able to find grace and peace and mercy, who have been able to shine the light of God's love because of those things. And that part of what we're talking about is the people or the times when we're stuck in the midst of the waiting, right? And part of this is, whether it's our past, a diagnosis, our circumstances, we all face moments when our brokenness keeps us from the life we yearn to live. Now, our problems may not be as obvious as the people waiting by that pool. You might be able to hide it really well. And I bet that your pool is a better solution than theirs. And yet, there are still things that we wait and we watch and we tell ourselves, if only, then things will be good. Jesus comes into the midst of a crowd of people who can't hide their desires. They can't hide what it is that they want, and they can't hide what it is that brought them there. And he comes into the midst of this to show them a different path. As we continue in verse 4, it says this: one who had been an invalid for 38 years, when Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he'd been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, do you want to get well? So Jesus sees this person and he says to him, do you want to get well? Now, can we just be honest for a second? This is a little offensive, right? What do you mean, Jesus? I'm sitting by the healing pool, right? I've got my mat, I've set up, I'm waiting. What do you mean, do I want to get well? And yet, Jesus comes to this person in the midst of this, and he says, are you wanting to get well? And I think part of the question, and part of my question is, did this pool ever work? Did this pool, and maybe it did. And you know what? There's probably a reason that those people are there. There must have been something, some example. And yet it's not working for this dude. 38 years he's had this condition. I don't know if he's been waiting by this pool for all that time, but we know that so far this pool has not worked, and he's tried. And so Jesus asks him, do you want to get well? And I think he's asking, how is this working for you? Because it doesn't seem to be doing what you're hoping to do. Now, are there things that we can do? Now, as we're thinking about, hey, if I could just do this, right, I want to better myself, I don't want to dismiss that outright. Of course, as Christians, as humans, there are things that we can do that make our lives better, right? Small things, big things. One of my favorite slides that I show to the high schoolers is I say, if you want tomorrow to be better than today, whether you're a follower of Christ or not, there's some basic things that just anyone can do, right? Hey, get more sleep, eat healthier, get outside and exercise, be with people. This is a true pandemic in our culture right now where people suffer more from loneliness than in any other time. Serve others in a meaningful way and delete social media. Not their favorite one. As I tell them, their kids, my grandkids, are gonna talk about social media. This is my personal opinion. This isn't the sermon. They're gonna talk about social media the way that we talk about cigarettes, right? They're gonna be like, you guys didn't realize that Instagram was killing you? And we're gonna be like, no, we all just loved it. We all did it. We spent all day liking stuff. Okay. Soapbox done, okay? Just kidding. Okay, all right. Here's my point. These things can help for sure. And yet we know people who do all of these things and they're still miserable. You think about in our society, the things that we tell ourselves, if I get to this level, then I will be happy. And how many people achieve that and then find emptiness? Because there's something else missing. The pools that we wait by are not always the things that we think they're gonna be. Sometimes the things that we turn to for help become the thing holding us back. We all know, and we've all been in conversations where people are saying, why don't you move on? And they're like, no, I need this. I've got to keep watching. I've got to keep waiting. At some point, this pool is going to ripple, right? The band's going to make it, right? If I just work harder, then things will work. And what often happens is those things that we're waiting for, the pool that we sit beside day after day, that is the thing that's keeping us from experiencing our life. One of my favorite quotes from my favorite books is the line, "It does not do to dwell on dreams and forget to live." So my question to you, and I think what Jesus is asking this man again is, how's it working for you? How's your pool working out? I listened to an interview recently with a woman named Colleen Kelly. Colleen's brother Bill was in one of the towers on 9/11 and tragically lost his life. Colleen's part of a group of survivors, of family members of people who lost their lives, and they advocate for others in similar situations. Colleen, as she was talking about her work and what she does, she was reflecting on the time kind of immediately after the tragedy of 9/11. And she was talking about how in her grief, she came up with a mission. And she says this, "I became obsessed with understanding his last day, her brother's. I wanted to know what my brother was thinking when he was trapped on the 106th floor. Was he panicked? Was he okay? Was he hopeful? What was he thinking? It became very, very important to me. Give me everything," she said. For Colleen, the pool that she sat by in those difficult times was, if I could just know, if I could just figure out what happened, that somehow that would help, that would heal. Her and her family, they spent time on this. They looked into, they found text message and DM records. They found a photographer who was in the tower at the event that her brother was at. And they asked for all of the images, and she searched through every image in the background, looking for pictures of her brother and who it was that he was talking to that day, and then seeking them out. At a certain point, after much searching, after much effort, she got to a place where she could account for everything except for the last hour of her life. And by her own admission, at a certain point, she had to say, I can't do any more. The interviewer, as she is reflecting on what she's hearing from Colleen and the conversations that they had, she summarized it this way. Colleen realized that excavating Bill's last minutes was her way of trying to take away the pain and fear her brother must have felt, to absorb it into herself. Devastating, but more so even because it's impossible. What she was trying to do by her own admission, she could never do. She could never take away what happened to her brother. And it's not my goal to judge anyone's process of mourning. Everyone mourns in a different way. And this may have been helpful for a short amount of time, but Colleen would tell you herself that at some point she had to lay this down, because at some point it wasn't going to give her what she wanted, what she needed. There are many things in our life that can give us help, but will they make you well? Is it the thing that you're truly looking for? Jesus comes to a man waiting by a pool, hoping to be healed, and he says, do you want to get well? Because he's tried this pool over and over again, and nothing's happened so far. And so does he really want to be well? But the good news is healing came that day. It says this, as Jesus is responding to him, right? He says, do you want to be healed? The man responds, I have no one to help me into the pool. When the water is stirred, while I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. Now, is this a response to do you want to get well? No, it's not. It's an excuse. He's telling Jesus, the pool will work. I've just got to do it better, right? We've had this conversation before as well. Hey, it doesn't seem like, this plan for your work and for making money doesn't seem to be helping. It seems like you're still kind of struggling. Yeah, I just got to try harder, right? The band's going to make it, right? If I could just get into the pool quicker, if I could just find someone to help me, then this pool will work. And Jesus is like, no, this isn't working for you. Instead, he brings the healing, right? In verse 8, it says this. Jesus says to him, get up, pick up your mat and walk. And at once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and he walked. This man, he sat by a pool every day and hoping that in it he might find freedom, in it he might find healing. But the man thought that this pool would do for him what only Jesus could. And I wonder how many times we give to our dreams, to our goals, to our work, that which only Jesus can give to us. If we put our hope in things that only he can fulfill. But this isn't the end of this dude's story. Jesus isn't done with him. Now, before we get to that, he's going to interact with, or we're going to hear from another group who's there on that day. It says this in verse 9. The day in which this took place was a Sabbath. And so the Jewish leaders said to the man who had been healed, it is the Sabbath. The law forbids you to carry your mat. You can go to the next slide. But he replied, the man who made me well said to me, pick up your mat and walk. Now, if someone healed me in this way and he told me to pick up my mat and walk, I would definitely do it as well. The Jewish leaders are saying, hey, part of our religion is to say that this day is holy and we remember God by not doing work. And what they've done is they've created rules that are really specific, so specific, in fact, that just carrying his mat is breaking this rule of how to honor the Sabbath. The religious leaders respond to this announcement of healing and they say, who is this fellow who told you to pick up your mat and walk? Now, what is it that they want here? Why are they asking? Are they looking for healing? Are they thinking, hey, this pool doesn't seem to have a great percentage of heals. This dude came one day and healed this guy and he's walking away. Let's figure out what he's doing. Are they saying, hey, let's go follow this person. He must have some new knowledge. No. A few verses later, it says that after they realized who it is, for this reason, the Jews persecuted Jesus and sought to kill him because he had done these things on the Sabbath. And the idea was this. These men, these religious leaders, they have a pool as well. They sit by this pool every day, and that pool is their righteousness. They believed that in their efforts to be pure, that they could bring about the hope that they prayed for. There was a belief among some Pharisees at the time that if every Jewish male could be perfect for one day, the Messiah would come and put things right. And so they see a man who has just been healed and they say, you're breaking the rules because those rules are our pool. And that pool gives us hope that one day a Messiah will come. But what's the problem? The Messiah is there. They missed him. This thing that they've been waiting for, the ripples that they keep looking for, he's right behind them. They miss him because they are so intent upon this pool that they miss what is real freedom, real hope, real healing. They sit by a pool that will do them nothing and instead miss the real power in the presence. How often in our obsession with the things that we think will bring us healing do we miss the work of the Spirit in our lives? On this campus, in your homes, how often do we miss what God wants for us because we think we have a better plan? Now back to the man who was healed. Verse 13, the man who was healed had no idea who it was, for Jesus had slipped away into the crowd that was there. But Jesus finds him at the temple and said to him, see, you are well again. Stop sinning or something worse may happen to you. Now, I get it. This may seem a little harsh. But here's the deal. Jesus is inviting him into something more. This man thought, if I could just be healed, then everything will be okay. But what does Jesus do for him, right? This man thought that this pool could do something for him, but only Jesus could. But Jesus has something more in mind for him. I want you to remember these words from the interview that I was talking about before. The interviewer, as she reflects on what Colleen is doing, she says that Colleen's goal was to try and take away the pain and fear, to absorb it into herself. But could Colleen do that? No. But here's the good news. There was one who could. There was one who was worthy. One who was able to take away our sin, our pain, our fears. He was able to absorb it in himself. And in his death, we have hope today. Here's what I want you to hear. As we reflect on this story, and as this story points us to who Jesus is, I want you to hear that Jesus wants to make us well. It may not be what we're expecting. This man got physical healing, but we know that that is not always promised. What is promised is that he will never leave you or forsake you. What is promised is that he will be with us until the very end of the age, that you do not have to go through this alone. You can be made well because of the hope of Jesus, but it doesn't stop there. When Jesus is talking to this man, he doesn't say, you're healed, everything's perfect. He says, now is the time to live. He gives us a role in his kingdom. He gives us a new future, that Jesus wants to make us well and to give us a new future. Hear me. This man was not just healed so that he could walk. He was healed so that he could live. That pool of expectations, of dreams, of hopes was death. Because all he did was sit and look at it and miss out on life. But Jesus heals him and invites him into a new life, to be a part of a kingdom that is making a difference in this world, that is redeeming and saving and healing, to be a part of a faith community that can make a difference in the lives of the people around us. And that invitation is to us today as well today. Today as well today. To us today. That invitation of healing and of a new future, that is for you. And I ask you as Jesus does, do you want to get well? Because only Jesus gives us that offering. Only Jesus gives us the pathway, not just to healing today, but a future as a part of his kingdom in this life and in the next. And I invite you this week to be reflecting on what your pool might be. And again, I'm not saying that it's necessarily bad. My question is this all that God has for you? Maybe this is a good goal to have in addition to pursuing Christ. But if this is all you're searching for, or if you're putting your hope on a future that is uncertain, maybe God is calling you to trust him in a new way this week. Let me pray for you. God, I thank you so much for this time that we have together. I thank you again for our seniors and for the ways that you've blessed this community. I thank you again for the lives that have been changed, for the baptisms. And God, I thank you for the example of this man who is healed by this pool. God, I know that each and every one of us at certain times in our lives, maybe right now, that we have pools that we sit beside and we hope this will bring us healing. We hope this will bring us hope. But God, would you remind us that it is only in you that we might find that healing. And it is only in you that we might find that future where we can be a part of what you're doing today. We love you so much. And we pray, amen. Friends, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for worshiping together. Please be praying for our seniors and go in peace. Have a great day.